You are listening to The Art of Sales. Everyone sells every day, and this is your source for conversational, real-world sales and prospecting methods that you are comfortable using and that get results. You'll help people buy instead of pushing them into being sold. Here's your host, Art Subcheck.
Well, hi again and welcome, and thank you so much for joining me. Today, we're going to discuss something that a lot of people hate, and it's a challenge for them, and it's something that causes them to not get through to decision makers. But then again, other people who know how to use it successfully, and hopefully that is you or will be you after this show today, will be able to master it. And that is voicemail. So today I'm going to give you my philosophy on voicemail. Going to suggest what you should avoid at all costs and what you should do to use it effectively to help you to get through to more buyers and do it professionally, not in the cheesy way that I'm going to explain and talk about. Now, for the sake of our conversation today, we're going to focus primarily on using voicemail with prospects or others with whom we really don't have much of a relationship with. These are the more challenging ones, right? After all, it's easy to leave voicemail for a friend or a good customer, and maybe at some point we'll talk about that. But for now, we're going to talk about prospecting voicemails. Now, a little bit of a rant here. I've about had it with so much of the garbage that is out there about sales voicemail messages. And I've been pretty consistent in my stance on this. And I'm going to give you that here in a second. But it just seems like every day, if you just go online, somebody's putting out a blog, an article, a tweet, a webinar video, a LinkedIn update, or whatever on how to leave an effective sales voicemail and 10 voicemail tips. And some of them have some useful things, and others, well, I guess I'm sometimes amused by the funny suggestions, but many times I'm just flat out annoyed by some of the tactics that I see suggested out there that salespeople are actually using. Now, some of these, I know they're well-meaning, but they're not effective in today's crazy, busy world where we're getting thousands of messages coming at us a day through all different types of medium. And a lot of these techniques are not based upon solid psychology and persuasion techniques and human behavior principles. And some are just flat out asinine. And then others, they're deceptive, which is completely unacceptable. I mean, for example, I'm not making these up. There's this call that is suggested where on your voicemail, you just give your number first, okay? Then you say you have something very important as it relates to, then you hang up. Oh yeah, I'm not kidding. People suggest that. Others suggest that you say you're calling them back and you leave your number. I had a guy actually use this on me, and I know he didn't call me, or I know I didn't call him first, and he said he was calling me back, and he left his number, didn't leave a company. And of course, I confronted him on it, and I said, how in the world can you say that? And he said, oh, I called you before, and now I'm calling you back. Yeah, right. And then, of course, there's the old just leave your name and number and nothing else technique, because then you're mysterious, and they must call you back then. Give me a break. When it comes to voicemail and sales, I firmly believe that the means do not justify the end. The means do not justify the end. So doing whatever it takes to get a call back is not an acceptable strategy. I mean, if it was, why not just leave a message that one of their family members was in an accident and they need to call you right away? I mean, that's pretty absurd and outrageous, right? Well, just like a lot of the voicemail advice that's out there. So you might be asking, all right, well, what should we do? Well, first, so that we can plan the optimal approach to leaving messages that get the results that we want, I want to take you through a little bit of a logical look at what is going on with people when we get a voicemail. So take this little journey with me. And actually, you might want to write this down. Not if you're driving, though, of course. All right, but what we want to do is we want to put ourselves in the position of people who are hearing our messages. Now, I'm not trying to get too deep into the weeds or too geeky here, but please stay with me. It's going to make sense. All right, so first, we need to examine the possible thoughts and the feelings experienced by a prospect when they get a voice message from someone they don't know or recognize. That would be you when you're prospecting. All right, so the first one is they experience no interest at all. They instantly identify the caller as a salesperson. They have no interest at all in whatever the salesperson is pitching. They're completely tuned out. All right, no interest at all. Number two, the reverse of that, very excited. Wow, they're happy they got that message. They instantly know there's something in it for them. And the example of that would be a potential customer calling them with, I want to buy from you, or I want to talk about your services. All right, the third frame of mind is somebody is curious and they're open to hearing more. They're curious about some possible value that the caller, the message might have hinted at. They feel that there might be something in it there for them, even though they don't have the whole story yet. Now, even though they might believe it's a salesperson, their mind is more focused on what they might get. So it doesn't seem like a salesy type of call. Again, they're thinking more about, what's in it for me here? This sounds like there might be something in it for me. And then my fourth category is they're curious, but they're skeptical. They're very skeptical about what the caller wanted, since it was kind of vague. There wasn't a lot communicated there. They're thinking, it might be a salesperson. Yeah, but then again, they're thinking maybe it's a prospect, maybe it's a customer, maybe there's something there. They don't know for sure, or at least they haven't made that determination, since the message was brief and it was very vague. Okay, so to review these at all, number one, no interest at all. Number two, the reverse of that, very excited. Number three, curious and positive and open. And number four, curious but skeptical, maybe a little bit defensive. Okay, now in looking at all of these scenarios, of course you don't want to be in the first category, right? No interest at all. But yet most voicemail messages create that one. Now, it would be very difficult for you on a prospecting call to create the emotions in number two, which is very excited, unless, of course, you're buying something, or if you're giving them something, or if you have news, they just won the lottery. But normally, we're not going to be in that second category. All right. And then let's actually skip over to number four, which is they're curious but skeptical. Now, this is a possibility, but I mean, if I can control this, I'd rather not be in this one, as you're going to see in a minute. So now, actually, by the way, if you're a professional salesperson and you don't live in the gray fringes of ethics and morals, and you don't live your life by the code of it depends what is, you don't want to feel like you need a shower after calling prospects all day and you want to sleep soundly at night, you probably don't want to be in the number four category, which is, again, curious but skeptical, as I'm going to explain here in a minute. So what does that leave us with? It leaves us with number three, which is curious and open. Okay, you want to make them curious about the possible value that you have, so they feel that there might be something in this for them and they want to know more. Okay, so you have all these. I'll tell you what, if you don't, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put all of this in the show notes at theartofsales.com, and this is episode 16. So regardless of when you're listening to this, go to episode 16 at theartofsales.com. Okay, now let's continue on. We're going to look at the possible outcomes and actions from someone who gets our voicemail messages. Okay, so the possible outcomes: A, no callback at all, nothing. Matter of fact, they might not even listen to the entire message. They would never want to talk to the caller, and they're going to avoid their calls in the future. They delete the message. And by the way, voicemails that fall into this category, if a bad voicemail is not returned, some people say, oh, well, nothing ventured, nothing gained. Well, no, I disagree with that. Damage still could be done. A bad voicemail can negatively reflect on you and your company, since either your name or the company name usually appears on caller ID, right? Okay, B, there's no callback right now, although someone is possibly open and somewhat curious about the message. Okay, there's not a callback. They don't feel compelled enough to see enough urgency or value to call, although they still could be open to hearing more. It's like that email that we let sit in our inbox, and we're going to get to it at some point. But again, really no urgency there. If another one comes in, we might respond to that one. So that's kind of the point I'm touching on here. Okay, let's look at another option. This is C. They do call back, and they become engaged in the conversation because they're interested. They see some value that either confirms their feeling that they might gain something, or they're interested in avoiding some type of pain or loss. And D, we don't want this result. You get a quick callback, but within seconds of realizing the caller's motives, they feel like they were misled, they were duped, they feel taken, they feel tricked because they realize the caller is a salesperson that is nothing of value for them, and they resent the fact that they were deceived with the message. So, given all this, which outcomes do you desire? Well, let's go through them. Naturally, you want to avoid A, which is just being ignored, no callback, being deleted. But again, you've had it happen. I have too. That's what happens with most sales voicemail messages. Now, since you are a professional, ethical salesperson, you certainly don't want the chance of D, which is somebody calling you back and now they realize that you had deceived them. No, that's not even an option, right? So what does that leave us with? That leaves us with B and C, which is in our message, giving them a valid reason to be open to some possible value that you might be able to provide. So here we're maintaining our integrity. We're placing them in this frame of mind where they're thinking about their favorite subject, them. I mean, sure, we all would like that golden magic phrase that gets all calls returned. Well, sorry to break this to you, but if you want the results that I just pointed out here, it doesn't exist. So you can, though, create messages that are going to get the results in B and C. Now, again, B would be no callback right now. They weren't compelled enough to call you back, but they haven't ruled you out, which means that they're still open to your message. It created something in their mind. It just didn't pique them enough to take some action. And C is the action that we actually want, which is a callback. And then they become engaged in the conversation and they're in that positive, receptive state of mind. All right. So how are we going to do that? How are we going to create messages that get those results? All right, here's how. So I'm going to give you my smart calling voicemail process. And this is a process. It's not just a technique. It's based on my best-selling book and methodology, Smart Calling. Now, its premise is fairly simple. And again, those of you who are followers, I'm preaching to the choir here, knowing something about the prospect and his or her situation, what's going on in their world before the call, and then we're using that intelligence, plugging it into the process. We're piquing some interest and curiosity so that we can be relevant in our voicemail message, which also, by the way, is our call opening statement. Now, the first step here is, of course, doing our research on our prospect. And let's face it, information today is more accessible than ever. So at the most basic level, going to Google, going to LinkedIn, going to their website, social media channels, Facebook, Twitter. Again, all these have great information. And then, if you want to take it a step further, if you're really serious about this, I recommend a couple other services in particular that can help you, A, build your list, and then B, make your intelligence gathering quick and easy and amazing, by the way. First is a service called Seamless.ai. And this service uses artificial intelligence to get real verified phone numbers and emails for prospects. And it gives you an amazing, quick and easy way to build a list, and also gives you some basic intelligence about your prospect. And I'm going to give you actually the link to that in the show notes page. And then also the second service I recommend, and this one I'm involved with, I partnered with my friend Sam Richter, who's the author of Take the Cold Out of Cold Calling, to offer the Smart Calling Sales Intel Engine. And I got to tell you, there's no one who knows more about how to use the internet to quickly get sales intelligence to help you make your calls relevant than Sam. And I've been promoting Sam for years, had him on webinars, and he shows people how to use the internet and how to use Boolean logic and all these different places to go and to get your sales intel. Well, what he found is that that's all great, but people like things done for them. So Sam listened, and essentially he's taken his knowledge and his wizardry and he put it into a simple tool that you can use to quickly and easily find amazing sales intelligence on prospects and companies and industries. I gotta tell you, it's a bit scary what you can find about people. And you're going to notice this when you look yourself up, which I guarantee is probably going to be the first thing you do when you get this service. So again, you can get the links to both of these in the show notes at theartofsales.com. This is episode 16 on voicemail. All right. Okay, so the next form of sales intelligence, and this is social engineering. We do this in real time, and it's simply calling into the prospect's business and talking to people other than your prospect so that you can get some great sources of, again, real-time, up-to-date, up-to-the-second information. So what are we looking for when we're asking these questions? Well, anything that might make what you have to offer of possible interest to them. And for example, I mentioned before, when I do this, I'll call into sales departments, talk to salespeople, and I'll find out, do they prospect? How do they prospect? How are they measured? What's the morale there? What type of training do they get? How are they coached? What do they feel they're effective doing it? Do their managers feel they're effective doing it? All great stuff that helps me put together a better opening statement and voicemail message when I'm talking to a VP of sales, a sales director, and so on. Now, I'll probably do an entire episode on social engineering in the future. Not probably, I will commit to that. But right now, if you want the entire social engineering process, just go to my blog, smartcalling.com. smartcalling.com. Go to the search box in the upper right and just type in social engineering. Okay, and you'll get that whole process there. All right, so here is the process. This is my Smart Calling voicemail formula, and I'll put this in the show notes as well. Step 1, identify yourself and your company. And again, this is the voicemail. So this part would be, hi Mike, I'm Pat Stevens with Executive Financial. Step number 2, we're plugging in our Smart Calling intelligence. Hey, I understand that your agency is aggressively making a push this year to take on more high net worth clients. Now, you see, that is something that I found out through my intelligence gathering, whether it be something I picked up on social media, something I picked up doing my social engineering. And then step number 3, this is where I insert my possible value proposition, would be something like this. Hey, we work with a lot of advisors nationwide in providing some very unique options that are quite attractive to others in that segment. And your peers tell us it helps them attract more clients as well as helping them to grow their existing book of business. So notice there, I've touched on a possible result that makes them curious. I didn't tell them what I do. I didn't talk about the thing. I just touched on the possible value. So makes them curious. Step 4 is the engagement phase. And I'd simply like to ask you a few questions, see if I could provide you some information. And then step 5 is the conclusion. I will call you again Friday morning, and if you'd like to reach me in the meantime, again, Pat Stevens, Executive Financial, my number is 800 and I'll repeat that, 800 of course it wouldn't be and my email is pat@efinancial.com. Thanks a lot. So pretty simple, right? And again, I'll put this in the show notes for you. I know I covered a lot right there. And basically, you could take that whole process and be successful with your next voicemail message. A couple points here. This is a no pitch zone. Notice the message doesn't say that you are, how great your products and services are, or that you want to meet with them, or that you want to have them attend a webinar, do a demo, or you're going to make some outrageous promise. In fact, it doesn't ask for anything other than the fact that I'd like to ask you a few questions. Now, what it does do, it touches on something that's going on in their world, suggests how you've worked with others in the same situation to get the results that they want. And again, the biggest decision here is, do they want to answer some questions? Also, what it does, it makes them curious about what you're talking about. So, it also says you're going to call back. Let's face it. Most voicemail messages are not returned. So lower your expectations here. You're not going to get a call back most of the time, so lower your bar. Sure, occasionally you're going to get a call back. But more importantly, you are planting a seed of value that can enhance your chances on the next call. This is a longer term play. People who just call and they're disappointed because they don't get a call back on their prospecting voicemail, well, it's going to be a sad existence for them because they're going to be disappointed most of the time. So there is no super secret method, no secret sauce to voicemail success. There's no magic technique. It's going to work every time. I would have heard of it by now. But I'll tell you what, if you do use the time-tested method of understanding something about your prospects, hinting at some possible value they might be interested in, you will show more success than doing the alternative, which is just smiling and dialing and throwing it up against the wall. All right, so again, I covered lots of stuff. Gave you lots of links or several links. And the best thing to do for you right now, or the best thing you can do, is go to the show notes page. Again, theartofsales.com, episode 16, and you'll see a summary here. This is really kind of a training session in this show. All right, you know what time it is.
You're at never will, never fear what they say. It's the art of the sales quote of the day.
That's right. Time for the quote of the day. And I'm going to use a quote that applies directly to what you want to accomplish with your voicemail. Now, I really couldn't find any quotes online that were all that worthwhile as it relates to what I just discussed here. So I'm going to use one of my own because it's my show. So it's more than a quote, actually. It's a rule, something I've been teaching for a long time. And here it is. The goal of a prospecting voicemail is to leave a question in the prospect's mind that they must have an answer to. Again, the goal of a prospecting voicemail is to leave a question in the prospect's mind that they must have an answer to. If you do that, you're going to find that occasionally you're going to get some return calls, but you're going to have a much greater chance of getting through with your subsequent follow-up. All right, a couple things here. If you enjoy what you listen to here on the show, would you do a favor for your friends and for me? And that is, let at least 2 other people know about this show. Send them to our show site, theartofsales.com, theartofsales.com. And again, for this episode, go to the show notes at theartofsales.com, episode 16. All right, until next time, make it your best sales day ever. I'm Art Subcheck.